Last year, my boyfriend and I decided that we would visit his parents for Mother's Day weekend. His parents lived up in the mountains, in a pretty secluded cabin house out in Colorado. I haven't met his parents yet at this point, and I had never been to Colorado, so I figured it was a win-win situation. My boyfriend gave me the lowdown of his parents. He told me both his parents are pretty normal. However, his mom was in a wheelchair. She has permanent leg paralysis, and it's impossible for her to move her legs. That did not bother me at all. I would not treat her any differently than I would somebody else. When we got to the cabin, it was a great sunny day. We ended up cooking steaks on the grill and having drinks as the sun went down. Overall, it was a great Mother's Day celebration, and both his parents were really loving and caring. However, things drastically changed when we all went to bed that night. Since we lived in Pennsylvania, our plan was to stay the weekend at the cabin house for Mother's Day and then leave Monday morning. Well, my boyfriend and I were sleeping in the guest bedroom. It was very late, like 2 a.m., when I woke up to a noise. It was pitch black in our bedroom, and I thought it could have been the cabin house creaking or the wind blowing the trees outside, when I saw something very disturbing. In the corner of our room, crawling around on the ground, making these weird slurping noises, was my boyfriend's mom. Not like crawling on her arms, but full-on crab walking around the ground, her back arched and sniffing like a dog. I was so confused because she was supposed to be bound to a wheelchair, but here she was, crawling around in the guest bedroom at 2 a.m., as if she had no leg paralysis. It honestly freaked me the fuck out, so I quickly laid my head back down on my pillow, pretending to be asleep. Seconds later, I could feel her hot breath all over my face. She was sniffing me hard. I did not dare open my eyes, and I tried my best to pretend that I was in a deep sleep. Terrifying minutes went by, and she eventually stopped sniffing me and crawled back out of the room. Believe me, I did not get a second of sleep that night. The next morning, we had our things packed up and ready to go. I tried to play it cool as my boyfriend and I said goodbye to his parents. But just as I finished up giving his mom a hug, she pulled me in close and whispered in my ear, "I know you were awake last night." She gave me this crazed, demented smile and then waved us goodbye. This happened last year, and I have not said a word about the incident to my boyfriend. I don't even know how to bring it up. He wants us to go back up there again this Mother's Day, and I seriously am terrified to see his mom again. I think I need to tell him. Thanks for listening, everyone, and happy Mother's Day. Every year, it's a tradition for the kids, my wife, and I to go up to my parents' house to celebrate Mother's Day. And in this story, that was no different. When this story takes place, I was in my mid-40s, and my mom and dad were in their late 70s. Anyway, when me and the family arrived at my parents' house, we were greeted by my dad, but we did not see my mom. My dad said she was just upstairs finishing a nap. She wasn't feeling too hot, but would come down later to see us. This kind of bummed us all out, because it was Mother's Day, and we all wanted to see her. But we figured it was best for her to just get a rest, and that we would see her later in the day when she came down. We headed to the backyard, where my dad fired up the grill and threw some burgers on them. I was speaking with my wife when the grill suddenly burst into flames. I ran over. My dad seemed very confused and did not know what to do to put the fire out. I ran inside real quick, grabbed the fire extinguisher under the counter, and sprinted outside to put the fire out. We were all startled a bit, and that's when I noticed how bad my dad's mental condition seemed to be. It worried me that he was very flustered and almost seemed like he was going to have a mental breakdown when the fire started. And that's when I realized my mom had still not come downstairs to see us yet. And I had this gut feeling that I needed to go upstairs and check on her right away. I told my wife to stay where she was in the backyard with my dad while I went upstairs. I should have known something was off from the moment I arrived, because the second that I got to the top of the steps, I could smell something horrid. I mean, truly horrid. Like meat rotting in the hot sun for days. Not sure what to expect or see, I slowly made my way to my parents' bedroom door and opened it. Lying in the bed was my mother, or rather, what was left of my mother. I cannot go into full detail of how she looked. It was extremely disturbing and heartbreaking. But my mother was dead and rotting in her bed, and it turns out she had been dead for over 10 days. My dad's mental condition had gotten very bad. He had not even realized that she had died. He thought she was simply not feeling well and was sleeping. He was literally falling asleep next to her corpse every night. Unfortunately, we had to send my father to a hospital where he is now. He's not doing well mentally, and I am scared for him. And I dread that I've lost my mother and had to find her rotting corpse. It was all truly a nightmare, and I just hope that everyone else has a positive, good Mother's Day. Every family has that one person who's a little batshit crazy, and unfortunately, in this story, it's my mom. To put it bluntly, my mother is ultra religious. She sees sin everywhere, tells people they're going to go to hell because of their outfits and all that kind of stuff. It got so bad that my dad actually divorced her because he could not take the constant eradication of sin. And when I grew up and was old enough to live independently, I also separated myself from my mom. Well, in this story, I had just had my firstborn son, Tristan. I was 25, had my own home, and had a pretty successful concrete business. When Tristan was born, I had a desire to rekindle things with my mom. I know she's off the deep end with the religion, but I thought maybe she had changed, and maybe we did not have to be a splintered family. It was Mother's Day, and I decided to throw a party for my wife, her mother, and my mother at my house. I was kind of nervous inviting my mom because I had not seen or heard from her since I was like 18. For the most part, the Mother's Day party was going pretty well. People were swimming in our pool, eating hamburgers and hot dogs, and just enjoying each other's company. There was a point in the party when we had all gathered inside to pour champagne for the mothers in our lives. As my wife poured the champagne, that's when I realized I could not find Tristan. He wasn't even one yet at this point, and I started to freak out. My wife said not to worry. Tristan was with my mom outside by the pool. I went to the kitchen window and looked outside. At first, I could only see my mom standing in the pool, but I could not see Tristan anywhere. That's when I noticed the thrashing of water and little hands flailing. In an utter shock of horror, I realized my mother was holding my son underwater. I sprinted outside and jumped into the pool. I literally shoved my mother away, but pulled my gasping son out of the water. He was coughing up water and bawling his eyes out. I realized I needed to get him to a hospital right away because I did not know if he had any brain damage. But before I did, I turned to my mother. She just looked at me and said, "What? I was just getting rid of the sin that's in his life." On that day, I officially disowned my mother from the family. My son ended up being okay at the hospital, and he's fine now. But we no longer speak of or acknowledge my mom in any way, and I do not even feel bad about that. Happy Mother's Day, everyone.